start. Okay, hello and welcome. Thank you, Björn, Schumacher, for joining us today. And today we'll be doing 100 questions with longevity legends. So I'll begin. How would you describe longevity in one sentence?
Longevity is the long life with a long lifespan and health span.
What is your favorite hallmark of aging?
Genome stability, of course.
Why did you start longevity research?
Because the problem of aging has never been addressed really before. We don't understand why we age, but we age. So it was time to solve that problem.
When did you start longevity research?
Well, during my PhD, actually, and then more in my postdoc. But I studied biology because I wanted to understand aging.
What about longevity makes you most excited?
That it can be targeted, longevity can be extended, and health span can be extended. That we learned from model organisms.
What is the first challenge you faced when you started your scientific journey?
To make the right choices, the right decisions, particularly at a time when the biology of aging hasn't been this enormous field that it is nowadays.
Who was your very first longevity mentor?
That was Jan Schumacher, actually, in my postdoc.
What was your first aging-related project?
That was figuring out how longevity assurance mechanisms respond to DNA damage.
What setback did you encounter at the start of your longevity work?
Oh, so many all the time. Experiments are because we don't know what comes out. So there were so many of them. But then it was always important starting a new project and go ahead.
What is your favorite longevity conference?
Oh, I have to say the ARDD because it's such a great involvement also with you guys.
What is your favorite part about conferences?
To meet people, to really interact and to discuss concepts also with people who are from diverse fields.
What is your least favorite part about conferences?
Getting the travel expenses reimbursed. That is such a hassle.
How many research conferences do you attend in 1 year?
I would say about a dozen, maybe.
Do you use interventions to extend your own life?
I try to exercise and do some intermittent fasting, indeed.
Who was your longevity role model when you just entered the field?
I never really had a role model, but really great colleagues and inspirations from so many scientists.
Okay, Anne-Sophie, over to you.
What is something on your bucket list?
On your, sorry?
On your bucket list.
Oh, really? To start new projects and solve more mysteries of aging.
Then, which longevity drug is there a lot of research going on about now, would you say?
Oh, there are so many of them. I think there's a lot of interesting stuff going on with rapamycin. And there are many new ones coming up. There are the new SGLT2 inhibitors for kidney disease that seem to have far-reaching consequence on other comorbidities as well.
Okay. Then at what time of the day do you feel most inspired to do longevity research?
Oh, that's usually any time of the day, but I think I'm most productive in the mornings.
Okay. Which country do you think is currently in the lead for longevity research?
I think it is the United States, probably because of the size, but also because they have dedicated institutes. But in Europe, there's a lot of going on as well.
Mm-hmm. So if longevity was an object, what would it be?
It would be a black box, I think, at the moment, because there's so much we don't know yet.
That's an interesting metaphor. What do you think is the next biggest step in longevity research?
I think the next big step is really integrating all these results that we get from model organisms and link them to human aging, because human aging is still so understudied but we need to make the links between what we understand in simple models and how do we link it to human longevity. I think that will be the next step.
And then, would you say there's a number one account or institution for the longevity community on social media?
Well, I think Twitter is really great because there's so much quick interaction with such a wide reach and beyond country borders, continents, and all over the world, people can join the discussion. So I think Twitter is really currently still, despite all what's going on at the moment, it's still the number one social media platform.
Mm-hmm. So which institution do you think is one of the most financially supportive in longevity research?
I think it's really governmental funding, because it's really not to be underestimated, because governmental funding here, for example, in Germany, is really directed at fundamental research, and we can really explore the field, discover new biology of aging, and that is still by far the most important part of funding is public funding.
Mm-hmm. Do you think humans will be able to live over 150 years?
At the moment, there's no evidence to suggest so, because at the moment, from all the data we have, it looks there's an upper limit of about 120. Whether this will be dramatically changed by technology, sure, maybe that's possible, but we have no evidence at the moment that this is possible. I would not exclude it, but it's pure speculation to go anywhere beyond that.
Mm-hmm. What is your favorite model organism for longevity research?
Of course, the nematode C. elegans is just such a fantastic organism. It's simple, and yet it does everything that we humans do when we age. And we can really study principle. We can understand concepts. Aging is complex. We should not underestimate the complexity of aging. We need simple biological organisms. They are still complex enough for our human minds to understand them.
What is your biggest strength with regards to longevity research?
I think my interest in really going across the borders of fields and really connect things, no matter what disciplines they are. And I think that's important. And that, I think, is something that I really thrive to do.
Mm-hmm. What is a must-read longevity publication?
I think it's the 1993 Nature paper from Cynthia Kenyon discovering for the very first time that a genetic mutation can regulate lifespan. That was groundbreaking.
Mm-hmm. How many years did it take to publish your last paper?
So that's interesting, because the actual project took 7 years to develop. It's a completely new part of biology. But then the revisions experiments took about 2 months. And that is a pretty good outcome of that.
So what is a must-read longevity book?
That is probably David Sinclair's book, I would say. That it's probably the one that has the farthest reach.
Mm-hmm. And then which high school did you go to?
I went to a comprehensive school in Hanover in Germany. It's a relatively modern type of school that really integrates pupils from all diverse parts of society, reaching any type of degree. So that let me really explore how, be friends with very diverse types of people. And that I really like that.
Sounds great. What was your favorite subject?
History, actually, and after that, biology.
Let's see. Did you learn about aging at your school?
Oh, yeah. So we had a very, very good biology class. And so the one thing that I learned about aging was that back then we had no idea how aging works. There was no field of biology of aging. And then I learned in high school, I think this was a really, really important lesson, that there's some really important part of biology that was not studied yet. And that was my decision. I had to study biology to figure that out.
So how would you describe a day in your everyday life now?
Well, usually it's very different whether I'm traveling, I'm at a conference, or here I'm in Cologne in my office. So usually I start working, I have meetings either via Zoom or I chat in the corridor with people from the lab. I meet with colleagues over coffee or just to discuss things. We discussed today just our next year's seminar series where we bring leaders in the field to Cologne. And so it's really diverse interactions with a diverse set of people. And also here in the lab, we have people from almost a dozen different countries. And so we have daily interactions with each other.
Sounds lovely. What was the first conference you attended in longevity?
The first one specifically on longevity was probably the Cold Spring Harbor Aging Meeting. And it was a very exciting conference where I met people that I'm still working with, in fact.
How many hours of sleep is good for longevity?
The more the better. I think, I mean, that is also individually, I think, quite different, but I think it's very important to get the 8 hours of sleep and really, at least try to do that. Sleep seems to be quite important.
And then what do you do for mental health longevity?
That's a good question. I think I just, try to be inspired, keep being inspired by the great progress in longevity research. And I think that also gives me some mental health. And of course, sports is very important because you also need to get your mind off. And, you can do that really great when you do sports.
Mm-hmm. What are your top 3 healthy foods?
I think it's probably, I like fish a lot. I mean, particularly in the form of, Japanese style sushi. Of course, vegetables are very important to eat. And the third one, I think, don't eat too much, whatever you eat.
And then, in your opinion, where is the border between youthful and less youthful?
I think it's really not a straight border. I think it's a trajectory. It's a process. And I think we need to become more integrative to different ages because we have to live together in one society with old and young people. And that's also why I find your project so really fantastic, that you're coming in here at a very young age to engage in the longevity community. And I think that's what we need. We need more integration across all ages.
Mm-hmm. What is one thing you've always wanted to research in science but have not done yet?
I think that will be human aging, to go more into clinical studies, things like that. That is certainly something that I would be quite interested in exploring much further than we currently do.
And then last question for me. What is a milestone longevity science may reach in the coming 10 years?
I think there will be great progress. I think we will be able to enhance DNA repair in the body, which is a really fundamental mechanism of aging that we can target. There will be a great progress in reprogramming, regenerating new cells that can be replaced. There will be tissue replacement, and I think that can make really tremendous differences.
Mm-hmm. Okay,
which top three qualities do you look for in a future employee?
Sorry, can you repeat the question?
Which top 3 qualities do you look for in a future employee?
Inspiration, dedication, and motivation, those 3 things.
What is one thing you wish you knew when you were in high school?
Where I could earlier start to do longevity research.
If you could have any number of hours in your day, how many would you have?
Endless.
What was a lesson that you found useful in university?
that you should never be discouraged by things that you don't like studying, but look for the things that are really important for you and keep those things and focus on that.
What is one way tech has helped you in your life?
Oh, with so many things. I mean, we're basing so many things on tech, and I think right now it's the communication tools that have really become part of the daily life.
And if you could change some career decision you made earlier in your life, what would it be?
Oh, I never want to look back like that, because you never know what would have happened in a parallel universe.
What is one thing high schoolers should avoid in a longevity work?
What? Sorry?
What is one thing high schoolers should avoid in a longevity career?
They should not too early listen to single people, because they might get a very biased view of the field. So I think to have a really open mind, because there are some very strong opinions in the field, and not all of them are right, not all of them are well-founded. And it's really important to be to have a really open mind for alternative ideas, for alternative fields, and not focus too rapidly.
What is your idea of perfect collaboration?
To have complementarity and a very good personal interaction is extremely important, and really have a joint interest in the end, that it really works to work together.
Do you have a strong collaborator in longevity?
Yeah, I have many collaborators, and for example, at the moment I have a very exciting project on understanding germline immortality with my dear friend and colleague Odette Rechavi in Tel Aviv. It's one example of many collaborations that are currently going on.
What is a conference you've always wanted to speak at?
I think, let me think which ones I haven't spoken at that I still want to speak at. That would be the question. I couldn't think of one at this moment, but there are so many that I really enjoyed and would love to come back to, and of course, new ones that are coming up.
What is your favorite exercise, if you have a favorite one?
I usually go running because I can do it outside and it's fresh air and all that. But of course, in winter, I really like skiing.
And how does a productive morning start for you?
It starts with a really good, strong coffee.
What is something you're tired of in research?
Of this lengthy process of publishing, with all this process about editors, reviewers, who some of them don't understand your science very well. And that's really a drag and a hassle, and it just takes away time. It just eats up time and limits productivity.
What are your top 3 priorities as a longevity scientist?
I think to search for the right topics, be inspired by the field, and give back the inspiration to the field.
What have you had to let go of in your career?
Many things that, for example, I really love traveling, and that is mostly restricted nowadays to conference traveling, and by far not enough time to really have more exploratory travels.
And if you could change the longevity industry in one way, what would it be?
I think we need much more open-minded investment. I think we have too little investment in alternative approaches, and too much focused on single ideas. And I think we need to have more scientific consulting in the investment area to really not miss out on the really big future developments.
And what technology are we currently missing to advance longevity research?
The one thing that has been really a challenge is to directly improve genome stability. That is what we're currently working on. We have some concepts where we make this possible for the very first time, but this is a very, very big challenge still at the moment, but it's so important to have this in the future.
And Sophie, over to you.
Yeah. Hold on. What is your favorite topic in longevity?
Genome stability, absolutely.
Have you been in this field for a long time?
Yes, I entered kind of in my PhD. It was mostly the DNA damage response, not so much longevity. But then in my postdoc, which started in 2004, I really joined the lab where I directly worked on DNA repair in the context of longevity.
What is one political change that would help advance longevity research?
We need policies that support longevity research and that recognize that this is one of the biggest challenges humanity is facing. We have a demographic change that will change everything we know about society, and we have to address the problem, and this requires a huge change in politics.
Mm-hmm. Where would you start on your research path if you were a high schooler right now?
I would contact scientists who have an open mind to engage high schoolers in research. I would get direct lab experience. But of course, it's also very valuable to have a computational biology project where things can also be done remotely to some degree. But if you have the chance to also at some point start an internship in a lab, it's really great because you have also the direct interactions and you learn how experiments are done. So these two things I would try to do.
What time of the year do you feel like longevity research is at its peak?
Well, I think it's going on throughout the year. Of course, we like to think that, you know, when spring comes, that there's the next great discovery, but it goes all year round.
So, what is your number one goal for the coming 10 years?
My number one goal is to solve the issue of genome instability, that we can really improve DNA repair. We are on a very good way of doing that, and I think this is a realistic goal that we manage this and we can implement that in humans as well.
If you were to organize a longevity conference, which country would you hold it in?
So in fact, I'm organizing several conferences in Germany, but my favorite place to organize conferences is in fact Greece. So we do also we are planning one, next one in Crete, which is a wonderful place for a conference, very friendly people and great weather and very great locations.
What are 3 symbols you associate with longevity?
Which 3 symbols?
Yeah.
So I think this symbol of eternity is quite important because this is, of course, something that we are thriving for. But I think that would probably be the one I would abstract to. Yes.
Then, which character trait is the most important for you in a collaborator?
That I think it's very important to have a good personal relationship. I think that's almost the most important thing, that you can be critical of each other, but that you also have respect and you like to get along and collaborate and share the interest. I think the personal relationship is quite important.
Mm-hmm. What is a challenge everyone in longevity research experiences at the same point?
Will you be able to actually extend human longevity? I think that's a challenge. It's unanswered at the moment. Nobody has proven it at this moment. We do not know how much of that is achievable, how it is achievable. It has, despite anything you might read on the internet, at this moment, human lifespan extension has not been proven yet. And that's we have to tackle.
Mm-hmm. What is your top tip for pitching projects to sponsors or investors?
To have a clear vision of what the output of that project can change, how much of a game changer it can be. I think that it all comes from that point.
Are there any animals you associate with the word longevity?
Well, of course. I mean, we see the elephants, for example, that are extraordinarily long-lived, but we see bats, which is really interesting because some of these, by comparison to their size, these are extremely long-lived mammals. Of course, some whales that live extremely long, and you always wonder, a whale doesn't it ever get boring when you're just living in the ocean environment? I don't know, but these are kind of the association that comes with that.
Mm-hmm. Where do you want longevity research to be in 100 years?
I think I want that we are actually still working on longevity, and that we have solved the major problem and stay healthy and have a positive interaction.
Mm-hmm.
What would you say? Yeah, go on.
Sorry, continue.
I was going to say, what would you say is the work that gained you the most credibility in the longevity field?
I think that we really identified mechanisms, and that people came into the field from genetics, biochemistry, now bioinformatics, that really have rock solid science. And that really has given the field a lot of credibility, that we really understand mechanisms, that it's not only association, but it's real rock solid mechanisms.
And what degree would you recommend to high schoolers who want to get into longevity research?
Well, I think it's important to early on engage in research, get some experience, see what aspect is really the one that suits best your own interest. And then I think biology is really a great study course because it gives you you need to understand even evolutionary biology if you really want to understand biology. And aging is a biology problem, primarily. And so I think to study something more general can really help to shape your personality and shape your knowledge and your understanding, your grasp of the problem. Because we don't know where in 10 years the field will be and what's the most important aspect to study. So it's good to have really a very solid and a rounded base. And that's why I recommend personally biology. Sometimes medicine can be a good study course, but you spend a lot of time away from science. So my priority would be biology.
What is a large upcoming longevity event that you're excited about?
Well, the next ARDD, of course. But we also have a really fantastic conference, an EMBL symposium in Heidelberg that brings world leaders together. That's a more academically oriented conference, but it will be a really exciting event with really the top world leaders and young scientists coming together in a great atmosphere of the EMBL. It's going to be a milestone of a meeting.
What was the scariest moment in your longevity career?
When a project didn't work and you had to rethink everything from scratch. That is kind of a challenging thing, but you do that.
What colors do you think of when I say the word aging?
Gray.
Gray. How does your typical business meeting go?
Well, usually you have a presentation and some talks, and I wish that we could do less presentation and more talk.
What is the social aspect longevity research helps with?
I think it solves it tackles the fundamental social problem that we have, that is age-related diseases, and that also causes a social problem because the socially disadvantaged group, the economically disadvantaged groups suffer most. So it's also a project of social justice.
When at poster sessions, what catches your eye the most?
If they are relatively simple and there's a person that really where you feel the inspiration for, and that the student presenting really burns for the project, that's really super then.
When listening to a boring speaker, what makes you want to fall asleep?
Yeah, that's indeed. That is pretty terrible. Nowadays, we have, of course, cell phones to get some entertainment in case the speaker is too boring.
So when listening to a really good speaker, then what strikes you as a really good quality?
That the speaker is really convinced about what they're talking about, and that it's something that it really, and that the speaker makes an effort for other people to understand what is presented. And then you really start thinking about it. And that's where it becomes interesting, even if it comes from a very, very different field. So it has to really be explained in a way that someone who's not an expert understands the project as well.
What is the must-do longevity course?
The must-do longevity course is going to a lab and actually do a project, because that's one-on-one. Nothing is better than that. No course is better than that.
Why is education important to you?
Education is important, but we need to change education in a way that it has to become more engaging and more of a dialogue and less of, you know, these traditional lecture formats. I think we have to get over that. And in German, the word for a university lecture is Vorlesung, which means reading. And that really we should have overcome ever since we could print books. And we really should have more interactive formats than seminars.
And when I say the word longevity, what colors do you think of?
Blue.
Blue. Should aging be considered a disease? Very controversial.
No, it's the cause of a disease, but it itself, otherwise everybody is sick and from birth on, because you age all the time.
And if you can have one superpower, what would it be?
To live healthy.
What is your favorite part?
In longevity.
What is your favorite part about in-person events?
That you actually get to interact with humans, because human interactions happen on so many different levels, not only on the visual and audio level, but there's so many levels of interaction that are actually important.
And what is one mistake that taught you a lot?
Well, that you make choices that have real consequences, and it's so important when you have to make a choice to seek advice and to have friends who are critical and who can really tell you the truth.
And when was the last time that you attended a conference, virtual or in person?
Oh, I need to think about it. I think it was in November, I organized the conference, and there was in December another one, I think. But in November, I organized a conference with our Minerva Center in Israel. And that was really a fantastic event on metabolism and aging. Very exciting conference.
And which would you choose, longer lifespan or longer health span?
Longer health span.
What is an essential thing to include in a good publication?
A good abstract that really makes the point and brings it across and does not exaggerate.
What is your personal favorite publication that you wrote?
I think our last one is just so fantastic. We found something so groundbreaking that is the basis of germline mutations. And that is really super exciting. I'm still very excited about that one. What
work did you do before longevity research?
The DNA damage response, that was in my PhD actually, but it was already related to these fundamental mechanisms of aging. But I started with the DNA damage response.
And with unlimited resources, what three longevity-related things would you invest in?
That's so interesting you ask, because it's a question I ask everyone I interview for a PhD or postdoc position here. And I think I would link model organism research to human longevity studies.
And what is your favorite educational resource?
I think it is the actual project work with the student. I think it's just the most important. I mean, all these lectures are by far not as important.
And where do you want to be in 100 years?
Maybe still here doing another interview.
In 3 words, describe your vision for longevity research.
Health, mechanisms, and organisms.
If life was infinite, what would you want to do?
I think I would go study history, because there's so much to understand of where humans come from, what they have done, and there's so many things to understand there.
And what is your #1 piece of advice for high school students?
Come do an internship in a lab and get diverse experience as much as you can, and really engage yourself, and very early seek the contact with academics. I did that myself when I was in high school, and it really shaped my career, my trajectory. So I really encourage you to make contacts, and don't be discouraged if you don't get an answer or it's not possible in that setting, that lab, that institution. Don't worry about it. Rejections are part of your life, but engage yourself directly.
And the very last question is, which longevity legend should we interview next?
I suggest you to interview Jan Veach from the Albert Einstein College. Great scientist, great person, also really interesting, and you might want to talk to him.
Brilliant. So that was all 100 questions. Thank you so much
for
participating in this.